Hello, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Jev. Yes, Triple V. The accent, by the way, is purely Kiwi. I read old stories for children, so we keep this a family-friendly channel by having bad word blockers, banning bots, and preventing spam. So that means new followers need to wait a few minutes before they can join in the chat. Since these stories are so old, they're now in the public domain, which means they are free to read for anyone and by anyone, the way many Christmas songs are. The digital versions I read are from Project Gutenberg, and you'll find the link for that below. The physical ones are just old books my family has lying around. Sometimes I'll even show them to you. These, by the way, are live reads. Think of them as bedtime stories rather than actual audiobooks. You get the benefits of my mistakes, distractions, explanations, and terrible attempts at accents, along with plenty of chat and interruptions as we find out about things in the story. If you need to do work or chores, then that's fine. Just come and lurk. Please adjust your volume to suit. There are captions available if you have to be quiet or you have hearing challenges, but be warned, sometimes the captions aren't always that accurate. I am a member of the Codex, an awesome group of reading streamers on Twitch. People from many walks of life who share their love of reading, and you'll find links to the Codex reading team and our Discord server below. A special feature of the Codex Discord is the security channel for those of you who stream or moderate. You'll find lots of practical, useful information to help keep your stream and your community safe. So, hang around and come discover adventure with me. You never know what we'll find.
Hello everybody. How are you? I hope you're doing well. Just sort of digging around in my system here and realizing I haven't got my little monitor tablet going, and my thankfully I checked before I started. My iPad mini was nearly flat, so I've had it charging all that time because for some reason I had actually turned it off the other day, even though I plugged it in earlier on to recharge. I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me. But then what does? I will grab my charging cable for my tablet so that it stays awake. Did you know that if you have an Android device, most of them have a power saving feature that's automatically turned on. If you go, I don't know if you have to go into developer mode now, but you used to have to go into developer mode, which just meant tapping on something in the about section repeatedly, and then it told you were now in tablet mode, in developer mode. And you leave everything else alone, but there's one setting there where you can tell it that when the device is plugged in, and with power going to it, it doesn't go to sleep because you don't need to save the power then. And so there are a bunch of us who actually do turn that feature on. Yeah, I'm breaking things before I get started. Typical. But we've got it going now, so that's good. And it's up to 24%, the iPad is. And the tablet, I'm just waiting for it to finish starting properly. And it has, yay. Everything else I think is working okay. I will get my little background monitor going here. And why am I doing the thing with my tongue around my teeth? Because there's a certain somebody sent me some feijoa jam. Big thanks to Jonathan. He's not here at the moment. He is probably busy working. He may or may not turn up for stream today, but he sent me a lovely pot of homemade feijoa jam. Now, the label you can see has green on it. John's feijoa jam. He's done his own label. And the fruit that you see over here, they don't actually look really orangey yellow like that, but that's just the colour that's used. That's these here. These are feijoas. Let's see if I can get them where they get a bit more light on. Okay, they're green, obviously. This is a small one. Generally, the smaller varieties, not picking them when they're small, have a richer flavour. Maybe it's the same amount of flavour per piece of fruit, but in the big ones it's spread out over more of it. Anyway, so I've already opened it, and it smells like feijoa jam, and there you go. That's what it's like inside. I've already been using it. I've got some here on my lunch toast, which is Vogel's bread. Very, very grainy, but quite yummy. I've toasted it slightly longer than I usually do, hence me having to concentrate to bite it, but it's delicious. So if I'm snacking today, I'll be snacking on that. Anyway, so technically, Goriki, I do have the analytics dashboard for moderation, in case you were wondering. Obviously, it's not showing anything for today's stream because we haven't had to do anything yet, and it says right under the title of it, summary data will be available approximately 15 minutes after the end of stream. Check back soon. But if I click on the little arrow to the left of the bit where it says Friday the 3rd of February, because that's what it is here in New Zealand, I can look at my previous stream, which was Wednesday the 1st of April for me. And for all we know, we won't even need to do a thing. Yeah. And so these are the sections. And I'm talking about this in public so you guys actually realize that we do keep an eye on these things. We try to keep up with changes that happen to our dashboards for controlling things. And also because Goriki and I actually mutually moderate for each other. He does a lot more for me than I ever do for him because, you know, he's already got everything set up. Yes, please do watch his video. Mod Learn 4, basically. And it's really good. It really is good. It was his last stream that he just did recently. Not yesterday, because that was Alka Mutations one, but the one before, which was before I did my stream. Before 99% grandma friendly. Yes, did not wind grandma up at all. Well done. I think he did really, really well with it. I think he did really well. He's disappointed. He won't tell you this, but he's a little bit disappointed because there are a couple of bits he didn't sort of quite explain as much as he would like to have done. But I think he did really, really well. He stayed upbeat instead of getting into rage the whole time, because it's really, really easy when you're passionate about something and it's about correcting some negative stuff that's around, to actually just get into rage mode and stay there. And so he actually did really well with it. He explained new stuff well and changes that have happened along the way. He would have liked to have elaborated on a few more parts, and he was expecting that he was going to have to do more Superman videos to fill in time. He did one episode and that was all he needed. He did really, really well. Well done, Goriki. Please, everybody, go and watch his that video. It's actually highlighted, so it will stay available on his channel on Twitch. I don't think he's putting it over onto YouTube. I would love him to put it on YouTube, just so it is in some ways more permanently available outside the Twitch space. I know it's very specifically about Twitch things, but sometimes people need to find stuff elsewhere before they come here to have a look at them too. Yeah, without cursing, it was fabulous. He said a particular word, a bottom word, once, and it was near the end. No pun intended. Yeah, but it was an appropriate, and it wasn't over the top or anything like that, which anyone who knows Goriki and how passionate he is about moderating, that is quite an accomplishment. You need a special badge for that, but I don't know what it would have on it. I succeeded in not cussing one whole stream or something like that. Anyway, no, it was really good. Go and watch it, everybody. Even if you don't stream or moderate yourself, it is worth understanding the effort that we put into keeping the space safe for you guys. Not just granny safe, but data safe and all that sort of stuff. It really, really is worth it. It's one of the things that by moderating well, and I'm not just talking telling people to behave nicely, because that's what some moderators think that moderating is. In chat, it gets a bit rowdy, and so they say, calm down a little bit, or they'll time someone out for a bit, and they think that's the sum of moderating. No, it's a lot more than that. But a good part of moderating is making sure that when you visit our channels, your data isn't being stolen by viewbots. There is a reason viewbots are there. Okay? Don't assume that because they're not chatting, that they're not doing anything. So this is why he proactively bans viewbots. If he comes up with a name that's inappropriate or is linked to a whole lot of others with variations on that name, he will proactively ban them. I don't want them sitting in my channel, because if they're not saying anything, why are they there? And all I can think of is that they're trying to steal people's information. But there's all sorts of settings that you need to put in place. So please, I'm not going to summarize the whole thing. Just go over there and watch it. It's really worth it, even if you never stream yourself, to actually understand the effort that goes into it. He's done a lot of research over the years. He continues to do a lot of research, which it's a little bit harder now because he's working. So he doesn't have as much time available. It does mean that he gets to save a little bit of money for things when he wants to. Yay. But if you want to support him in any way, go and subscribe to his channel, or go and use even better. If you don't want to hand Twitch about half the money that you'd like to go to him, go over to his Ko-fi account and give him a big tip over there. It's wonderful. On the plus side, maybe there's something in the panel now. I don't know if the panel will actually show me live updates of the moderator actions and things like that. I will see if there's anything showing yet. No, not yet. I've just refreshed that page. It it doesn't seem to show live. It only shows afterwards. But I'm just going back to what we were talking about. Me no coffee. Oh, Patreon. Sorry, not coffee. Patreon. He's got a link for it somewhere. Go and put it in my channel chat. Goriki. Now here. And Void, sorry about that. Your comment was because he said 100% fam friend, as in family friendly. But he was all excited, so he put it all in caps. That's why it got timed out. That no worries, it happens. But just if you're wondering why. So last time it said that I had changed. This is just talking through what shows up in this moderator actions panel in the dashboard now, going back to where I was before. It's showing me that there are only 2 change logs, and that was me setting subs only to off and emote only to off because I had done that. It actually says that I was the one who did it, and when I did it, which is really, really good. And it shows me in my time. And there's a settings section for that. It has links, a link for a pop-out or to another page for where you can change settings for things. And it shows blocked terms. So it says there that Goriki added 3 blocked terms while I was in stream, because this section is about during stream time, even if it doesn't show you until afterwards. So there you go. It's working. I will actually send a screen cap through to him for that so he can see what goes on. Because sometimes when you see stuff on your own channel, what you see is slightly different to what your moderators see. And so this is part of what we do, is to keep understanding what the functions are, how they work and all that sort of thing. Just what's going on. Because Twitch will add something and it'll sound like it's a great idea, but until you actually see it in practical real life usage, yeah, same for audio. We don't always hear what the streamer thinks, definitely. Until we actually see it in practical usage, it's just words. It's just, there, we're being nice to you. Now just quiet down, children, sort of thing from them when they tell us that they're doing some cool new thing for us. Yeah, right. We'll see that when we get to it. Anyway, so that's that. Let's have a tip video and see what happens after that. And who have we got today for our tip video? Who's the presenter? I'm not sure. Let's find out.
Hello. My name is Raccoon Zed. In Zed. That's right. 3 C's and 3 O's. Ha. So, welcome to the stream. We have many tips for you to help enjoy the stream. Number 1. Have a drink. I like water. As soon as my human helps me out here. So, another part of that is when I hydrate, when I take a drink, you do too. You can indicate that you've done so by giving a thumbs up or use the water bottle emoji down in chat. Number 3, sure, why not? Food or snacks? I don't have any right now, but you eat whatever you'd like to eat. Maybe it's a whole meal, maybe it's a snack, I don't know. You do you. Number 4, get comfy. You can wrap up in something. Thanks, human. That's more like it. Grab a pillow, maybe you've got a fidget toy you can play with. But do anything you like to be comfy. You could even have, I don't know, maybe your favorite human will give you scritches. Hey, human. That's right. Give me scritches. Yeah, that's right there. Yeah. No, don't touch the floof. Next, we have number 5, something to write with or write on. Hey, I can't reach the pad. There you go. And I need something to write on. I just said something to write. Oh wait, that's something to write on. I need something to write with. Okay. Okay, so I don't have opposable thumbs, but you do. Write memos down. You might need to remember something. Maybe not right now, but maybe after the stream. Number 6. Get involved. Join in chat. Chat in chat. Use commands. Play bingo because, that lady says some pretty crazy things from time to time. Make clips. You can even have them featured. Maybe we can see your clips someday. Spin the pages, which are like right down there somewhere. They look like a book or something. The thing down there with a number under chat. And just do whatever you can to enjoy chat. Thanks for watching.
Sorry, folks. It's just such good jam. What is jam? Jam is like jelly, but with the fruity bit still in it. Jelly as in the spread. Kiwis, British people, find it confusing when Americans talk about initially. Yes, I corrected that, sorry. Kind of. Kiwis initially, when they first come across it, are like, jelly? What is this jelly that you are putting on your sandwiches? Because jelly to us is a dessert. Like the brand name Jello, which we don't have. It's just jelly. And so you eat it with a spoon. And what you have that you put on your bread or your toast or whatever like that is jam. Whether it is clear, has bits in it, or whether it is something where you see that it's very opaque because it's got lots of fruit in it. That is jam. All of those. Yes, Totally Not Goriki was the very first ever tips video, and that was before Goriki moved back to the States. So I was thinking that after I'd actually typed in about thank you to Goriki for working with raccoons to provide our first ever. That's why I said sorry, correction, first ever raccoons tip video. So anyway, I have a drink like we have been instructed to do. And yes, it does not have a sleeve on it today, but I am strategically putting my hand over the bit that needs to be covered because it's a green drink. I don't know what colour it is inside it, but it's yummy, and it's a New Zealand made energy drink. Actually, I'm just going to pour a little bit in here. It's energy drink yellow. Not luminous though. Unlike Mountain Dew, I don't know if it's still that bright. I didn't know what colour it was when it first came out. Mountain Dew first came out. And I just had it. We were at a conference, a multi-day conference, and it was available, and it was hot weather because it was summertime, so I wasn't drinking coffee, and discovered this for the first time, so I was having some of that each day and enjoying it. Caffeine, energy, all that sort of stuff, and then later on somebody said to me, how can you drink that? Have you seen the colour? And I thought, no. So I poured some out one day. Man, that's bright. I don't know if it still is or not. Anyway, I don't even know if it's still around. I haven't seen it for a very long time. I was looking up information on V, the New Zealand energy drink, which I was just drinking. And yeah, apparently they have like a 48% market share, and everything else is, yes, the really big no-name ones like Red Bull. And there's another really big no-name, I can't remember at the moment. And Monster and Mother and I don't know, there's so many different names now. And we do have the other ones in New Zealand. but V has the biggest market share, or at least it did a couple of years ago. I don't know about now. It's good. I like it. And any of them when they're on special, if it's one that I'm okay with drinking it doesn't bother me for flavour, I'll get it. I tend to get ones that use sugar rather than sweetener if I can. Now, the V yuzu and blackcurrant, I think that's how you say yuzu, is actually a sugar-free one, but that's because with their fruit line, they've tended to go for the zero sugar and use sweeteners. They're not as bad. Their sweeteners, the balance they've got on the sweeteners they use aren't as bad as some of the other ones that other brands do. I don't get as much of the weird aftertaste from the sweeteners as I do from a lot of the other brands. Anyway, so what are we up to? We are reading some more of Tom Swift and his Submarine Boat. We have the brick wall handy in case it's needed. The letterboard behind it just says Tom Swift. At the moment, it's just holding up the brick wall in case we need it. Do we have anything else exciting going on? Not particularly. The cat is not here. It's hot weather outside. It's not raining, unlike yesterday for part of the day. And my Wednesday, the day before yesterday, when it was wet, which was partly, I think, why he was sitting here. As the weather cools down, he has more of a tendency to come and sit in the space when I'm streaming, because he quite seems to enjoy just hearing me nattering away in the background. Yeah, why not? I suppose it's like white noise. Anything else? Yeah. Yesterday I had a migraine. Today I woke up, I still had a bit of pain from it. So if I'm looking a little bit distracted, it's just because my thinking doesn't work as clearly. It's one of the parts of a migraine. Now, a migraine is not just the pain. A migraine is a syndrome that has a whole lot of different aspects to it. You can get visual aura. You don't always. So that can be where you get the zigzaggy crescent in one side of your vision that looks like it's buzzing. It can be that you get patches of your vision will blank out. So you feel like you're going blind, and that blank spot gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Usually all those sort of things happen before the pain hits. You can actually have a whole lot of other things like a particular muscle ache in your neck, pressure in parts of your head. Your nose can be itchy. That's one of the ones for me. I used to think it's just me, but apparently a lot of people get that. Extra sensitivity to noise, to light, to smells, to textures, all of that sort of stuff. And there's a whole sequence to it where you will get a lot of those other things that are not the pain part in the pre-pain section. That's what they call the prodrome. And then you get the pain section of a migraine. And then after that, you get the postdrome, which is the other effects that you have that linger for a while. For me, during the pain stage and also afterwards, I get it. My thinking is a lot fuzzier than normal. So this is why Goriki's kind of got used to the fact that sometimes he'll ask me a question about something and I'll say, look, brain's just not doing it at the moment because I'm still getting over that migraine. And I used to think it was a one-day thing that was just the pain. And I've actually come to realize it takes several days, even if the pain is only one day. But for me now, I'm actually realizing that and I've mentioned this the other day, I used to get it so I would have a pain day and then I'd be fine for the next day. No pain relievers, no nothing. And then the third day, I would actually get another headache. And I thought it was just a headache, but in actual fact, tracking it now, it's just part of that process. So if you know anyone who gets migraines, don't just write it off as, oh, it's just a headache. Just go and take something for it. If they are someone who is really incredibly blessed or very lucky, whichever way you want to put it, and taking normal pain relievers works, yay, celebrate that for them. But in actual fact, there are a lot of people who have migraines way worse than I get. Sometimes I'm bedridden for a few hours. Sometimes I will have nausea with it. Usually, if it's bad enough to actually have nausea, I will also have quite intense pain. And hopefully, I will take the pain relief before we get to the nausea stage. Otherwise, the likelihood is that I'm going to throw up the pain relief and it's not going to do very much for me. Yeah, lying down in bed in a very dark room with no sound around whatsoever. And not people talking to me so I don't have to think things through does help. If I can get sleep, it speeds up the next stage of it, so I go into the recovering and getting over the pain stage of it a lot quicker. But often it's not bad enough these days for me to actually need to go and lie down and have a sleep. I'll just take my interruptive pain medication, and I call it that. They call it abortive. It means you actually have the pain, you take this medication and it breaks that pain cycle so that it stops. That's what they mean by abortive. I tend to call it interruptive because I don't actually really like that word. And as opposed to preventative, I don't get migraines often enough to take a preventative medication. I do have a bunch of things I don't do, or I don't do as much as a lot of other people might do to prevent myself getting as many migraines. It has helped as I've got older because my hormonal fluctuation, which everybody has, but women tend to get it stronger than men, or people who are estrogen dominant tend to get it more than people who are testosterone dominant. It is greatly affected by that. So as I age and those levels have modified, it's meant that the pain stage of a migraine is nowhere near as intense. Why am I telling you this? Because you probably know somebody who gets migraines, and I'm wanting you to be a lot more understanding of what life is like for them. I do know people who have chronic migraine, and that's where you will have a really high number of days per month, and you record it to actually get this on your diagnosis, a really high number of days per month where you are dealing with migraine. And for that part of it, they are talking about the pain section of the migraine experience. And I just don't know how they cope, seriously. And the sort of pain medication I take initially when they first get introduced to that might help. But it's one of the reasons I don't take the pain medication every time I have a migraine. If it's really mild pain-wise, I will try not to take it and try and use just normal over-the-counter medication, because it's one of those ones that the more you take it, the less effective it is. Don't want that happening because it works fairly well for me, and I don't want to lose that. The very first time I took it, I couldn't believe it. I had this intense migraine. I took this stuff, and not straight away, but sort of about a half an hour to an hour later, I still had the fogginess, but I didn't have the pain, and it was unbelievable. It's like a whole new world. So the stuff that I take is called is the type of medication it is a triptan, and it's specifically the one that it is rizatriptan. Now, you cannot get this over the counter. You have to actually request it and get a prescription for it because it is controlled. But that's because they do things like they will make sure that your blood pressure isn't really out of whack, because apparently it can cause problems with that. And it's one of those ones, it's weird. When you first have it, it's a bit weird because it's a little tiny tablet. You put it on your tongue and it dissolves. And it's like, ugh, yuck. Weird texture, weird flavor. And it always gives me the shudders. It's just one of those things where I get this sudden involuntary shake when it gets to a certain stage of me experiencing the flavor of it. I don't know what it is that does that. But I was like, well, why are we doing this? Why are we not taking a tablet? Why is it not in liquid form? They call it orodispersible because it dissolves in your mouth and then you swallow the saliva that has that in it. It's a lot more quickly taken up by your body because it's already starting the digestion process, which is what disperses stuff into your body from your digestive system. Anyway, so there you go, migraines. If I'm a little bit scatty today, it's because I'm still on the tail end of a migraine. There you go. I knew it had a connection somewhere to what we were doing. Right. Excuse me. Anything else? I don't think there's anything else I need to specifically tell you. I am just going to reload my Twitch Aussies and Kiwis collection and see if I'm on there. I bet I'm not. I still don't know how they actually get people onto that page. It's a shelf. Technically, it's a shelf or collection. It seems to be highly populated by Australians. I don't know that whoever is in charge of. It's like the front page, you have the carousel at the top and then you have a whole lot of stuff under it. This doesn't have a carousel, but who decides what goes on there first? I've never seen myself on there. And it's at the time of day where there's quite a few. You can keep scrolling and it keeps loading more people. They're all live. And if you're ever looking for it, I'm going to give you the link. So if you ever want to find other Kiwis and Aussies who are streaming, like I say, there's not a lot of Kiwis on there usually. It's just the way it works. So there's the link for it. If you ever are looking for certain types of streamers, there's often a collection of streamers like that Twitch actually has somebody curating that bunch that it's populated from. There's probably I don't think it's just the tag for what country you're from. I think there's probably something else where you have talked about it elsewhere. Not to be confused with Stream Teams. No, definitely not to be confused with Stream Teams. So Stream Teams, I'm part of a Stream Team. In fact, I'm part of 2 Stream Teams. Stream Teams can only be created by somebody who's a partner, a Twitch partner, and they can only create, unless they've changed it, they can only create 2 teams in the whole of their Twitch career. I think there's a little bit of negotiation with the really big streamers. And what they are is a collection of people who have something in common, who have chosen to be part of that group. And we have one here that I am part of. This is the logo for it, Codex, or the Codex. We are a bunch of people who read, among other things, read public domain books on Twitch. We just felt that it was a good idea to have a bunch of people who had this in common. And also another commonality is that we're strict on what is allowed to happen in our space for our streams. That means making sure that bad words don't get through. Not bad words language, bad words blocked terms. There are things that are not appropriate to have coming through in your chat. Also making sure that bots don't take over and other things like that. All the stuff that Koriki talks about. Yeah, itchy nose is one of those. More itchy than normal. One of those migraine things. So high security levels and also public domain reading. But a lot of the people in the team, it's not a very big team at the moment, a lot of the people in the team, their dominant thing that they do may not be reading. It may be something else. Our commutation is part of Codex. His main thing is actually playing his Smile Core music, which is fantastic. If you've never heard it, go and have a listen. Even if you're not normally into metal or heavier music, it really is something that just, if you listen and let yourself just sit with it, can, not for everybody, but can be really satisfying. It's like when you go to the hairdresser, if it's a good one and you don't have a problem with it, and they wash your hair and then they give your scalp a massage, but a really good one. It feels like that. It gives you that sort of a, yes, that's just what I needed, sort of a feel to it. There's something that does that about it, the way he plays, what he plays, and he composes his own stuff too. But he does read. That's one of the things he does, but it's not the main thing he does. So there are people in our team. We have a bunch of us. There's me, there's Goriki, there's our commutation. Aranel, I think, is still part of the team. It's a very small team at the moment. So if you know somebody, or if you yourself do read public domain books, and do not read books that are still copyright unless you have express permission to read them. Like I read Donkey Tales because I gave myself permission because I own the copyright on that book. And I have also read another one called Matariki, which is another kid's book, because I had express permission from the publisher to share it on stream. So I had those permissions. So I wasn't breaking terms of service, because it's about making sure we comply with Twitch terms of service, which says some strong things about copyright. Okay, so if you do read public domain books or books that you have express permission to read, please talk to us about joining the Codex team, especially if you even if you haven't yet got a lot of safety stuff in place for your stream space. You can talk about that with us and learn how to do that and all that sort of stuff. Hi Jiltia, great to have you here. Just me rambling, me talking about migraine and me talking about Goriki having his modiversary the other day, which was just after he had been having that, and then I started streaming, and then he raided into my channel. And unfortunately, I missed Alchemutation's 5th anniversary because I had a migraine, and it was the horrible pain stage, and I'd also had to go into town and do errands, and I can only cope with one thing in a day, and that was the errands, and they are ones that I couldn't avoid doing. So yes, and please do have a look at the video, the highlight that Goriki has from his modiversary. It really is very well done. You can watch my the VOD of this to hear my other ramblings about that, but no problem. So if you are interested in joining the stream team, talk to Goriki or myself or Alchemmutation or anyone else is in the team. There is a list underneath in the panels down here somewhere below my main video screen, or if I'm not live, you go to my about page and it will tell you information about the team and who's in it. And you can see if you click on the team link, which is I think the icon for it, it will take you to, actually it's also when I'm live, it's just under my name, it says Codex, because that's the team that I'm in, and it's a link, clickable link. But you can see, you can go to the team page, which actually says a little bit about who we are and who is currently live at the moment. And you can also check out the other members of the team. So if you want to follow them, you can. So there you go. That's all the ramble, I think. Yeah, that was a bit longer than I wanted. But that's the way it goes. Anyway, I've also got Goriki asking me questions, but he knows that I'm in the middle of doing this, so he's going to expect me to answer that question when I'm not streaming. He's just queuing it up for me for later. Nothing to do with stream. So we're at 32% on the battery. That's good. Hopefully it's not going to go down. I'm leaving it plugged in. I will have another drink. I have 2 mouthfuls instead. Sorry, I said I would cover that. We'll carry on. And I do have my water bottles here. The water levels haven't really gone down too much for me to need to relabel them. Right. Oh yeah, that's where we got to. I'd accidentally tapped one page across. So they were trying to get away from the Brazilians, and I was having rants last time about international waters versus territorial waters, because they were in territorial waters and they were trying to stand on their rights as Americans, which actually when you're in another country's territorial waters, you are required by international law to abide by their territorial law because you are in their territory. It's like if you go to England and you're driving a car over there and you learnt to drive in the States, you can't drive on the right-hand side of a two-way street and say, but I'm allowed to because I'm American. No, because the law in England says you drive on the left-hand side of the road and you are required to abide by their road rules. It makes sense when you think about it like that, doesn't it? or Canadian. I could have said Canadian. I just didn't think of it at the time. Sorry about that. I wasn't trying to pick on the Americans there. That was just a general thing. Right, so here we go. Chapter 22, At the Wreck. I'm just going to read the last paragraph. It's not very long, just in case it's relevant. Sorry, itchy nose because migraine again. Tom signalled to Mr. Sharp in the engine room, and in a few seconds the Advance was speeding away from the island and the hostile vessel, because they actually managed to get away because there was a really big storm happening. They were prisoners aboard this ship, the Brazilian ship, and they were going to get shot at dawn or something like that. Mainly because the chap in charge was new to the role and also thought it would be a good score for the Brazilian government. I don't think this is anything like what they're really like. To actually have their very own submarine. Here's a good way to get one. So he was going to get rid of the people who it belonged to, which probably wouldn't be a good idea actually, because you wouldn't know how to run it. Because this is a fancy, swift invention, so it's going to be different, isn't it? Tom signalled to Mr. Sharp in the engine room, and in a few seconds the Advance was speeding away from the island and the hostile vessel. Nor, deep as she was now, was there any sign of the hurricane. In the peaceful depths she was once more speeding toward the sunken treasure. And I actually put a picture up, a kludged together picture of underwater and a submarine. It's actually a pen. Go and look on in the Discord server or on my social media, you'll see it. Chapter 22, At the Wreck. Well, remarked Mr. Damon, as the submarine hurled herself forward through the ocean, I guess that firing party will have something else to do tomorrow morning besides aiming those rifles at us. Yes, indeed, agreed Tom. They'll be lucky if they save their ship. My, how that wind did blow. You're right, put in Captain... Excuse me. You're right, put in Captain Weston. When they get a hurricane down in this region, it's no cat's paw, which is a reference to a style of texture on the water from light wind. It's referred to as cat's paws because you get little wee patches of textured water when you get a little breeze starts, and they're referred to as cat's paws. And this is just the author trying to show that, yes, they understand that nautical people have their own language, so we're going to use some special nautical phrases in there. Showing off would be better if they actually understood a little bit of other things to do with nautical things and showed off that knowledge, like law, if you're going to actually make it a big part of the story. You're right, put in Captain Weston. When they get a hurricane down in this region, it's no cat's paw, but they were a mighty careless lot of sailors. The idea of leaving the ladder over the side and the boat in the water. It's a good thing for us, though, was Tom's opinion. Indeed it was, came from the captain. But as long as we're safe now, I think we'd better take a look about the craft to see if those chaps did any damage. They can't have done much, though, or she wouldn't be running so smoothly. Suppose you go take a look, Tom, and ask your father and Mr. Sharp what they think. I'll steer for a while until we get well away from the island. The young inventor found his father and the balloonist busy in the engine room. So the balloonist is Mr. Sharp. See book 2 in the series. Mr. Swift had already begun an inspection of the machinery and so far found that it had not been injured. A further inspection showed that no damage had been done by the foreign guard that had been in temporary possession of the Advance, because the Brazilian chap had stuck some of his soldiers on board to guard it, which these guys got rid of them. Although the sailors had made free in the cabins and had broken into the food lockers, helping themselves plentifully, but there was still enough for the gold seekers, because they had months' worth of food on board. You'd never know there was a storm raging up above, observed Tom, as he rejoined Captain Weston in the lower pilot house, where he was managing the craft. It's as still and peaceful here as one could wish. Yes, the extreme depths are seldom disturbed by a surface storm. You don't actually have to go down beyond comfortable free diving depth, not record holding free diving depth. Yeah, the movement that's on the surface with really rough waves in a storm gets less and less as you go further down. Yes, the extreme depths are seldom disturbed by a surface storm, but we are over a mile deep now. I sent her down a little while you were gone, as I think she rides a little more steadily. All that night they speeded forward, and the next day, rising to the surface to take an observation, they found no trace of the storm, which had blown itself out. They were several 100 miles away from the hostile warship, and there was not a vessel in sight of the broad expanse of blue ocean. Oh, by the way, we are meant to have drunk Wreck, because I think that was the name of the chapter, wasn't it? Come on, you guys. Wreck. I'll put that there ready for the next one, because I'm pretty sure we're going to have it. The air tanks were refilled, and after sailing along on the surface for an hour or two, the submarine was again sent below as Captain Weston sighted through his telescope the smoke of a distant steamer. "As long as it isn't the Wonder, we're all right," said Tom. "Still, we don't want to answer a lot of questions about ourselves and our object." "No, I fancy the Wonder will give up the search," remarked the captain as the Advance was sinking to the depths. The Wonder is the one that Mr. Berg is involved with, the submarine. They were also going to hunt for this treasure, but they didn't know exactly where to go. "We must be getting pretty near to the end of our search ourselves." "They haven't actually searched yet. Should we tell them?" ventured the young inventor. We are within 500 miles of the intersection of the 45th parallel and the 27th meridian east from Washington." "That is not how you say where something is." "No," said the captain. "That's as near as I could locate the wreck." You don't need me to restate my opinions about this method of finding something in the ocean, because you can just go and watch one of the VODs. "Once we reach that point, we will have to search about underwater, for I don't fancy the other divers left any buoys to mark the spot." It was 2 days later, after uneventful sailing, partly on the surface and partly submerged, that Captain Weston, taking a noon observation, announced, "Well, we're here!" Because there are no lines drawn on the water, so he has to do his sun sights and plot it on the chart. "Do you mean at the wreck?" asked Mr. Swift eagerly. "We're at the place where she is supposed to lie, in about 2 miles of water," replied the captain. "We are quite a distance off the coast of Uruguay, about opposite the harbour of Rio de la Plata. From now on we shall have to nose about underwater and trust to luck. Now, we know they're 2 miles underwater. We don't know how far off the coast they are. This is the bit that I keep forgetting to tell you guys. They talked about where the wreck is in reference to the capital of Uruguay, which is, what was it called again? I can't remember. They talked about it at the beginning of the story. Let's find out. But the way they talked about it was that it was a fair way if you were going to walk, but it sounded to me like it was still within territorial waters of the country that they were in, and that's what I was going to mention to you. Montevideo, or Montevideo. Let's see if we have a name. It talks about the harbour of, opposite the harbour of Rio de la Plata. I do not see anything significant enough to be called a harbour of that. Montevideo Bay or Montevideo Bay. I don't know which way they want to call it. I wonder if they're meaning the river mouth for the River Plate, Rio de la Plata, because it's really big. If you're in Buenos Aires, which is on the Argentinian side of it, it's quite a lot to get across to the other side. It's sort of like when you're down at sea level, you can see it way off in the distance. It takes a wee while to get there. And I'm wondering if in the story they're talking about that really wide river mouth as being the harbour of. Actually, I wonder if I can show you. Display capture. Is that one? Yes, I think it is. I'll bring this up to the top. There. So if I scroll out, you've got this. There's Montevideo. That's the capital of Uruguay. There's Uruguay. You can see the name just there. And here's Buenos Aires, which is the capital of Argentina. And I'm wondering if they're talking about this inlet here, because the coast then goes on down here. Actually, I'll show you a bit more. If they're talking about that inlet shape there as being the harbour of, this is massive. It takes half an hour to go across there in a ferry, at least, in a quick ferry. So that's quite a distance, because they run a ferry from Buenos Aires across to one of the bumps of land right there. That's a shortish distance. So this is enormous. Anyway, so what they're talking about in the story in the early stages are that it's off the coast here, and yet they're talking about how far apart this is, and it sounds like it's just out here, which means it's actually still within the territorial waters of Uruguay, which means they do not have the right of salvage or treasure hunting on that to claim that all of it is theirs, because the way treasure works is the country that's territory you are finding the treasure in gets the right to half of it, and you may possibly be allowed to keep the other half of it. And it depends on if there is an insurance company or a salvage company involved as well as yourself. It's one of the things that the treasure hunters who are salvage experts will look for some wrecks but not others, because of the countries that they are dealing with. But it's not just like, oh, there's a wreck just off the beach along the coast up from Cape Cod. I'm just going to go and help myself to all that gold from that pirate's wrecked ship. No, America's going to say you don't have the right to do that because that's still in our territory, so therefore that gold that's on it is ours. And also, if the ship was insured, the insurance company is going to say, actually, it doesn't even belong to the United States anymore if it's unclaimed. It belongs to us because we insured the ship, therefore we own everything on that ship. And this is how it actually works in real life. So them saying, oh, well, let's just take a cruise down there and take all that gold because we feel like it. That's like somebody coming into your front yard and saying, I like all the flowers in your garden. I'm just going to dig them up and take them home with me because I like them. I want them. And you can do nothing about it. Yeah, there's storytelling stuff which doesn't quite add up here. And I think if you are going to write children's books, you can't just assume that because they are kids and don't know this sort of thing, that you can just make it up to that level. You do need to have a certain degree of, not lip service, you need to actually acknowledge the proper ways of doing it. You don't have to go into detail, but you do need to acknowledge it. Otherwise, the adults who are reading it to the kids are going to go, hey, that's wrong, and it pulls you out of the story. Or if the kids are slightly older and they go back and reread something they read when they were younger, they're going to go, hang on a minute, that doesn't seem like anything like how it would really work. If you're talking about something that's complete and utter science fiction, and the way the story is written is that it's purely fiction, not based on science, future fiction, yeah, you can get away with completely making stuff up. But if you're talking about things that are based in the real world and they're not futuristic, because these stories are not. These stories are set in the era that they are written. The inventions that are referred to are current inventions that were in the news or in the scientific magazines at the time. They're not talking way off in the future. So therefore, they need to actually reference how things are accurately done so that people don't grow up thinking the wrong thing about what they are and aren't allowed to do. Yeah. Honestly. It's always been something that's irked me about certain fiction that I've read, even when I was a kid. Just because as a kid you are a little bit more world aware than what adults seem to think you are. It's like, why are they allowed to do that? Nobody's allowed to do that. Why are they telling us this in the story? And I'm not the only one. Yes, there is suspension of disbelief in fiction, but it depends on how it's done. So just so you know, treasure, you can't just go and help yourself. Just remember, you can't go and pinch the neighbour's garden. That sort of thing. There are rules around it. That's called theft. Anyway, and like I said, I'm not going to get into how hard it is going to be to find it underwater. And I'm hoping that they do a little bit of hard work searching for it rather than just, oh, look, there it is right there. We are going down from right on this position that you've plotted on your chart. Where we are on the surface, we're going to just go straight down and look, there it is. I hope they don't do that. We're at the place where she is supposed to lie, in about 2 miles of water. That's 2 miles deep, replied the captain. It's actually a very long way, 2 miles deep in water. We are quite a distance off the coast of Uruguay, about opposite the harbour of Rio de la Plata. I really don't know about this. From now on, we shall have to nose about underwater and trust to luck. With her air tanks filled to their capacity and Tom having seen that the oxygen machine and other apparatus was in perfect working order, the submarine was sent below on her search. Though they were in the neighbourhood of the wreck, the adventurers might still have to do considerable searching before locating it. Lower and lower they sank into the depths of the sea, down and down, until they were deeper than they had ever gone before. The pressure was tremendous. This is worrying, actually. But the steel sides of the Advance withstood it. Somebody please look up how deep the Titanic is underwater for me, please, and compare it with this. Then began a search that lasted nearly a week. Yay! One sentence acknowledging that it is a bit of hard work. Back and forth they cruised around in great circles with the powerful searchlight focused to disclose the sunken treasure ship. Once Tom, who was observing the path of light in the depths from the conning tower, thought he had seen the remains of the Boldero, for a misty shape loomed up in front of the submarine and he signalled for a quick stop. It was a wreck, but it had been on the ocean floor for a score of years, which technically means 20. And only a few timbers remained of what had been a great ship. I think they just mean score, as in lots. Much disappointed, Tom rang for full speed ahead again, and the current was sent into the great electric plates that pulled and pushed the submarine forward. For 2 days more, nothing happened. They searched around under the green waters on the alert for the first sign, but they saw nothing. Great fish swam about them, sometimes racing with the Advance. The adventurers beheld great ocean caverns and skirted immense rocks where dwelt monsters of the deep. Once a great octopus tried to do battle with the submarine and crush it in its snaky arms, but Tom saw the great white body with saucer-shaped eyes in the path of light and rammed him with the steel point. The creature died after a struggle. Oh dear. They were beginning to despair when a full week had passed and they were seemingly as far from the wreck as ever. They went to the surface to enable Captain Weston to take another observation. Tony confirmed the other and showed that they were in the right vicinity, but it was like looking for a needle in a haystack almost to find the sunken ship in that depth of water. Well, we'll try again, said Mr. Swift as they sank once more beneath the surface. Technically, you'd work a grid search. You actually set coordinates, and if possible, you leave markers on the bottom, and then you travel this way, and then you turn around, you move across and travel parallel to that, but across So it's you're just seeing the edge of the area you were searching before, so you don't miss anything. Just like what they do when they're searching, when they do a line search, when a child has gone missing or something, and you see a whole lot of people in a line moving forward, and you're looking across the ground looking for evidence or whatever like that. That's what they're meant to be doing down underneath. You don't just randomly drive around. And so you go around like this on the bottom of the water for an area, and then you move and you do another area alongside that. And that's actually normal. It's been done for many, many years. It was toward evening on the second day after this that Tom, who was on duty in the conning tower, saw a black shape looming up in front of the submarine, the searchlight revealing it to him far enough away so that he could steer to avoid it, because they don't want to run into it, thinking it's a great big rock or something. He thought at first it was a great rock, for they were moving along near the bottom, but the peculiar shape of it soon convinced him that this could not be. It came more plainly into view as the submarine approached it more slowly. Then suddenly, out of the depths in the illumination from the searchlight, the young inventor saw the steel sides of a steamer. His heart gave a great thump, but he would not call out yet, fearing that it might be some other vessel than the one containing the treasure. He steered the Advance so as to circle it. As he swept past the bows, he saw in big letters near the sharp prow the words Boldero. "The wreck! The wreck!" he cried, his voice ringing through the craft from end to end. "We've found the wreck at last!" What they're referencing is the fact that on ships you have the line of the top edge of the hull, that's the bit that keeps the water out, and then you have the bow here, and then in the top front corner you will have the name of the boat. And if you even, it's not a language based thing, this is generally how it's done across the world these days. Anything that's a commercial vessel will have the name of the vessel on the front of it and on the very back of it across the stern. It'll be on both sides on the front, not exactly on the bow, but right near it. I watch a few travel videos set in Japan, and even though the names are written in Japanese, they will have the name on the bow of the boat, of the ferries, the car ferries and the ferries that take passengers, cars, and trucks to a different island, because Japan is made up of a lot more islands than New Zealand. And they have a lot of people living on different islands. So, yeah. The back will typically also ID the country of license or operation. Yes. So, it will have sunflower, and then it will have, depending on where it is, the port of registration. So Osaka, if that's actually technically the port, otherwise it's the name of the port that's near there. Osaka, Japan, if it is the ship Sunflower from Osaka, Japan. Now, the ship may not be based in Osaka anymore, but that's where it's registered to. That's its home base, even if it's currently working across a different part of it. So, and that's written across the back of the boat, so that any other boat that comes from anywhere else that sees it knows where it's from. It's a bit like having license plates on a vehicle, which I think some people call them tags or discs. I don't know. But you know, the number plate on a car, so that law persons can actually say, can track down whose it is and where it's from if you've been driving illegally. It doesn't work so much if you've stolen it. They will only find out who you stole it from. But often also, especially commercial vessels, like ones that are running as a business, they will also have an ID number on them as well, to do with their registration. So yeah, this is why, that's what he's talking about. When he says that he saw the name on the front and it said Boldero, it's that name that's up on the front there on a lot of others. Go and have a look. There's photos of them all over the place, or watch YouTube videos. Solo Travel Japan. He doesn't talk in his videos. He puts little captions on the screen, but I first came across him because he was doing ferry trips and then sharing them with people so they could see what they were like. He types on the screen how much the trip costs, and if it was something unusual about why he chose that particular cabin style for his accommodation, because there are a lot of people who travel via ferries in Japan when they're going from one island to another. You don't always travel by plane. And so he's just sharing what it's like. But that's one of the easy ways to see what that looks like. You can actually watch some of his videos, and near the beginning he will actually show a picture of the ferry that he's traveling on, usually from towards the bow, and you'll see the name of the boat on it. That's just a specific example I can think of. Right, let's carry on. The wreck, he cried, his voice ringing through the craft from end to end. We've found the wreck at last. So they've been down for a week, they came up and then they went back down again, and it's 2 days later. So that's 9 days that they've been searching underwater. Excuse me, itchy nose still. Are you sure? Cried his father, hurrying to his son, Captain Weston following. Positive, answered the lad. The submarine was slowing up now, and Tom sent her around on the other side. They had a good view of the sunken ship. It seemed to be intact, no gaping holes in her sides, for only her plates had sprung apart, allowing her to sink gradually. A smallish gap, letting water through, rather than just a huge gaping hole, because that would sink quickly. At last, murmured Mr. Swift, can it be possible we're about to get the treasure? Now we're at page 301 of 354, so I think we're going to have this happen, but I feel like something else might yet happen before we get to the end of the story. That's the Boldero, all right, affirmed Captain Weston. I recognised her even if the name wasn't on her bow. Go right down on the bottom, Tom, and we'll get out the diving suits and make an examination. The submarine settled on to the ocean bed. Tom glanced at the depth gauge. It showed over 2.5 miles. Has anyone found out yet how deep the Titanic has sunk? Would they be able to venture out into water of such enormous pressure in the comparatively frail diving suits and wrest the gold from the wreck? It was a serious question. The Advance came to a stop. In front of her loomed the great bulk of the Boldero, vague and shadowy, in the flickering gleam of the searchlight. As the gold seekers looked at her through the bull's eyes of the conning tower, several great forms emerged from beneath the wreck's bows. Deep-water sharks! At last, we drink of the shark bottle. Deep-water sharks, exclaimed Captain Weston, and monsters too, as in they're really big, but they can't bother us. Now, to get out the gold. The Titanic lies at about 2.4 miles, so there's no way on earth they would actually be doing this in dive suits. Because they do that in a submersible. And we've heard of the crushed private submarine that went down, haven't we? The human body can't cope at this depth in the water directly. It is the weight of the water above you is just too much. You can't breathe even with supplied air at that depth. And you need something that is really, really, really well reinforced for this depth. And the way this has been done, it's too hobbyist. Oh my goodness. They can't bother us, he says. I don't know why he's saying that. Thank you for looking that up for us, Joltaire. I do appreciate that. Chapter 23, Attacked by Sharks! So yes, I will have another drink because that is in the book. I don't need to shut this one again because I think we're going to keep using it now. For a few minutes after reaching the wreck, which had been so occupied, thank you, a reminder that it's a good time to stretch. Let's all stretch before we get further into this chapter. I am keeping my legs forward and turning while I do an arm stretch because it's good for my back and my arms at the same time. And let's do the one forward and do the one behind us and pull your neck back so you don't get a hump. Okay? Lift your head up. Bring your chin in And push your head back. Yes, it does do double chins, but it doesn't matter. Pom-poms. Thank you, Goriki. Find them. Here they are. Pom-poms. Pom-poms are now sharks. I don't actually have any shark headbands, so you'll just have to pretend these ones are. I did use that pen picture for the social media post that you sent me. I found a slightly bigger one just so it wasn't going to get too fuzzy. But it was based on the actual item that you sent me, so that was good. Right, let's find the egg timer. Oh, my head is starting to get a little uncomfortable again, and it's not from the headband. It's just how long since I last had anything for pain. How are we going? 3/4 of an hour. Right, we should be okay. Here we go. Chapter 23, Attacked. Oh, better turn it on, eh? There you go. That's going to run for 6 minutes, and then you guys are going to hear it, and I won't. Attacked by sharks. For a few minutes after reaching the wreck, which had so occupied their thoughts for the past weeks, the adventurers did nothing but gaze at it from the ports of the submarine. Now, let me let you in on a secret. True treasure seekers, the ones that go looking for ships that have been wrecked, will search for something for years, and they'll often get themselves bankrupt, get into great financial difficulty, and they'll get new backers, and those guys will go out of business or run out of money or something like this. It's usually a lifetime thing to find the ship that you're looking for, not just a matter of a few weeks and using the submarine you built in your backyard. But that's okay, we'll just let them have that one. The adventurers did nothing but gaze at it from the ports of the submarine. The appearance of the deep water sharks gave them no concern, for they did not imagine the ugly creatures would attack them. And yes, I am going to drink of the shame bottle, because we are now implying that because the sharks are ugly, they are bad guys. Just because that's old. I don't agree with it. That sort of characterization. I never have. Some of the nicest people I know are not the handsome, pretty ones. They are the uglier ones, according to social standards. And they are much nicer people. So, yeah. I can't find a valuable wreck in a weekend trip. Bother. Maybe at the bar? Good on you guys. Right, let's carry on. The treasure seekers were more engrossed with the problem of getting out the gold. Itchy. I don't like it because it keeps distracting me. Anyway, how are we going to get at it? Asked Tom as he looked at the high sides of the sunken ship, which towered well above the comparatively small Advance. Why, just go in and get it, suggested Mr. Damon. Where is gold in a cargo usually kept, Captain Weston? You ought to know, I should think. Bless my pocketbook. I was wondering when he was going to say that, because he hasn't for a while. Or bless my something. Well, I should say that in this case, the bullion should be kept in a safe in the captain's cabin. I thought it was actually meant to be quite a large physical quantity of it from what they said with the value of it. Or if not there, in some after part of the vessel away from where the crew is quartered. But it is going to be quite a problem to get at it. We can't climb the sides of the wreck, and it will be impossible to lower her ladder over the side. Floating, swimming, we're underwater. This is not on land where you have the limitations of normal gravity. However, I think we'd better get into the diving suits and take a closer look. We can walk around her. I'm guessing they're going to find a hole in the side that they just walk straight in through it. And that the boat is sitting normal and reasonably level on the ground, and they can walk through on the different inside deck floors and upstairs and stuff to find places. Let's see what they actually encounter. However, we better get into the diving suits and take a closer look. We can walk around her. That's my idea, put in Mr. Sharp, but who will go and who will stay with the ship? I think Tom and Captain Weston had better go, suggested Mr. Swift. Then in case anything happens, Mr. Sharp, you and I will be on board to manage matters. You don't think anything will happen, do you, Dad? Asked his son with a laugh, but it was not an easy one. The lad was thinking of the shadowy forms of the ugly sharks. Okay, ugly. Unless deep water sharks are very specifically ugly, but they didn't start with that as the description. It's just that they're a menace, so now they're ugly. Oh no, but it's best to be prepared, answered his father. The captain and the young inventor lost no time in donning the diving suits. They each took a heavy metal bar pointed at one end to use to assist them to walk on the bed of the ocean. They need a walking stick. And as protection in case the sharks might attack them. Let me tell you about that if you're going to take a stick with you when we get to the end of this. Entering the diving chamber, they were shut in, and then the water was admitted until the pressure was seen by gauges to be the same as that outside the submarine. Then the sliding steel door was opened. At first, Tom and the captain could barely move, so great was the pressure of water on their bodies. They would have been crushed but for the protection afforded by the strong diving suits. That would imply the diving suits are rigid, like a suit of armour, but not leaky. In a few minutes they became used to it and stepped out on the floor of the ocean. They could not, of course, speak to each other, but Tom looked through the eyeglass of his helmet at the captain, the front plate in the helmet, and the latter motioned for the lad to follow. The two divers could breathe perfectly. Of course they could. It's a Tom Swift book. I do like the stories, but I do find some of the science is a little bit too much of a leap. The science or lack of it. The two divers could breathe perfectly, and by means of small but powerful lights on the helmets, the way was lighted for them as they advanced. Slowly they approached the wreck and began a circuit of her. They could see several places where the pressure of the water and the strain of the storm in which she had foundered had opened the plates of the ship, but in no case were the openings large enough to admit a person. Captain Weston put his steel bar in one crack and tried to pry it further open, but his strength was not equal to the task. One would think not, because these plates are meant to be thick enough that it can actually keep the water out of a boat normally, and a boat it's a lot of pressure of the weight of the boat pressing down on the water when they're floating. He made some peculiar motions, but Tom could not understand them. They looked... When I was diving, we actually had little wee underwater slates, a little piece of white acrylic stuff or something like that, and like a wax pencil that you could write on it so that you could pass messages to the person you were with, and you worked out how to write something that was as few words as possible but made it clear so the other person could understand what you were saying. And they don't even have that. They looked for some means by which they could mount to the decks of the Boldero, but none was visible. It was like trying to scale a 50-foot smooth steel wall. There was no place for a foothold. Again the sailor made some peculiar motions, and the lad puzzled over them. You don't want to play Pictionary with sharks about? Yes. I'm wondering if this is what Mr. Weston is gesturing about. They'd gone nearly around the wreck now, and as yet had seen no way in which to get at the gold. As they passed around the bow, which was in a deep shadow from the great rock, they caught sight of the submarine lying a short distance away. Light streamed from many bull's eyes, and Tom felt a sense of security as he looked at her, for it was lonesome enough in the great depth of water, unable to speak to his companion, who was a few feet in advance. Suddenly there was a swirling of the water, and Tom was nearly thrown off his feet by the rush of some great body. A long black shadow passed over his head, and an instant later he saw the form of a great shark launched at Captain Weston. The lad involuntarily cried in alarm, but the result was surprising. He was nearly deafened by his own voice. It's echoing round in his metal helmet. Confined as the sound was in the helmet he wore, but the sailor too had felt the movement of the water and turned just in time. He thrust upward with his pointed bar, but he missed the stroke, and Tom a moment later saw the great fish turn over so that its mouth, which is far underneath its snout, so you've got the shark's head like this, and the mouth is way back here compared with the nose. Anyone who has watched Finding Nemo knows this. I think I better take this. I've just got a phone call. Sorry, folks. Right, we're back. Someone wanting a light bulb put in because it's blown, and it's in a room that only has that one light in it. And them forgetting that I'm actually doing this. The easiest way to explain it to somebody who doesn't get online stuff is just say you've got a meeting, and it's a regular meeting. It's what I do when I'm dealing with businesses and they want to phone me back, and I say, well, as long as it's not after this amount of time in the day on these days of the week, because I have permanent meetings. And it usually works. Right. Sorry, itchy. The great fish turned over so that its mouth, which is far underneath its snout, could take in the odd shape which the shark evidently thought was a choice morsel. Just remember, these sharks, if they're deep water sharks, are not used to seeing people down here, because people aren't usually down here. The big fish did actually get the helmet of Captain Weston inside its jaws, but probably it would have found it impossible to crush the strong steel. That's terrible. I mean, if he starts to try and squeeze on it, because it says it's a very big shark, and distorts it a little bit, how vulnerable do you need your characters to feel? Still, it might have sprung the joints and water would have entered, which would have been as fatal as though the sailor had been swallowed by the shark. Actually, no, bitten, not swallowed. Tom realised this. Sorry, we've said shark a few times. Let's have a few drinks. I've got distracted. Let's go for 3. There you go, that's 3 drinks. Tom realised this. We're having a meeting about Shark Week. Yeah, that's it. Tom realised this, and moving as fast as he could through the water, he came up behind the monster and drove his steel bar deep into it. The sea was crimsoned with blood, and the savage creature, opening its mouth, opening its mouth, let go of the captain. It turned on Tom, who again harpooned it. Then the fish darted off and began a wild flurry, for it was dying. The rush of water nearly threw Tom off his feet, but he managed to make his way over to his friend and assist him to rise. A confident look from the sailor showed the lad that Captain Weston was uninjured, though he must have been frightened. As the two turned to make their way back to the submarine, the waters about them seemed alive with the horrible monsters. Yes, because blood is one of their food triggers, one of their biting triggers. Sharks. They smell it and they come to it, and it doesn't matter if it's one of their own or something else. It needed but a glance to show what they were. Sharks. Scores of them. Long black ones with their ugly undershot mouths. They had been attracted by the blood of the one Tom had killed, but it was not a meal for all of them off the dying creature. And the great fish might turn on the inventor and his companion. The two shrank closer toward the wreck. They might get under the prow of that and be safe, but even as they started to move, several of the sea wolves darted quickly at them. Tom glanced at the captain. What could they do? Strong as were the diving suits, a combined attack by the sharks with their powerful jaws would do untold damage. It's not the power of their jaws, it's the sharpness of their teeth that's the problem. At that moment there seemed some movement on board the submarine. Tom could see his father looking from the conning tower, and the aged inventor seemed to be making some motions. Then Tom understood. Mr. Swift was directing his son and Captain Weston to crouch down. The lad did so, pulling the sailor after him. Then Tom saw the bow electric gun run out and aimed at the massive sharks, most of whom were congregated about the dead one. Into the midst of the monsters was fired a number of small projectiles which could be used in the electric cannon in place of the solid shot. So it's like a shotgun instead of a normal bullet. Once more the waters were red with blood, and those sharks which were not killed swirled off. Tom and Captain Weston were saved. They were soon inside the submarine again, telling their thrilling story. It was lucky you saw us, Dad, remarked the lad. Dad's probably now a little bit worried because that could have all happened when they were around on the other side of the ship, and Dad would not have seen it to be able to save him. Nose, itchy. It was lucky you saw us, Dad, remarked the lad, blushing at the praise Mr. Damon bestowed on him for killing the monster which had attacked the captain. Oh, I was on the lookout, said the inventor, but what about getting into the wreck? I think the only way we can do it will be to ram a hole in her side, said Captain Weston. That's what I tried to tell Tom by motions, but he didn't seem to understand me. No, replied the lad, who was still a little nervous from his recent experience. I thought you meant for us to turn it over, bottom side up, he laughed. Bless my gizzard, just like a shark, commented Mr. Damon. Please don't mention them, begged Tom. I hope we don't see any more of them. Oh, I fancy they've been driven far enough away from their neighbourhood now, commented the captain. But now, about the wreck. We may be able to approach it from above, which is what everybody else does. Suppose we try to lower the submarine on it. That will save ripping it open. This was tried a little later, but would not work. There were strong currents sweeping over the top of the Boldero, caused by a submerged reef near which they had settled. It was a delicate task to sink the submarine on her decks, and with the deep water swirling about, was found to be impossible, even with the use of the electric plates and the auxiliary screws. Once more the Advance settled to the ocean bed near the wreck. Well, what's to be done? Asked Tom as he looked at the high steel sides. Ram her, tear a hole, and then use dynamite, decided Captain Weston promptly. You have some explosive, haven't you, Mr. Swift? Oh, yes, I came prepared for emergencies. Yeah, I always carry some dynamite in my bag, or my pockets if I don't have a bag. Don't you? Sounds like. Then we'll blow up the wreck and get at the gold. Chapter 24. Ramming the Wreck. Fitted with a long, sharp steel ram in front, the Advance was peculiarly adapted for this sort of work. In designing the ship, this ram was calculated to be used against hostile vessels in wartime. For the submarine was at first, as we know, destined for a government boat. Now the ram was to serve a good turn. To make sure that the attempt would be a success, the machinery of the craft was carefully gone over. It was found to be in perfect order, save for a few adjustments which were needed. Then, as it was night, though there was no difference in the appearance of things below the surface, because by then you're so far underwater that the daylight doesn't get down to where you are at all. It was decided to turn in and begin work in the morning, nor did the gold seekers go to the surface, for they feared they might encounter a storm. "We had trouble enough locating the wreck," said Captain Weston, "and if we go up we may be blown off our course. We have air enough to stay below, haven't we, Tom?" "Plenty," answered the lad, looking at the gauges. After a hearty breakfast the next morning, the submarine crew got ready for their hard task. The craft was backed away as far as was practical, and then running at full speed she rammed the wreck. The shock was terrific, and at first it was feared some damage had been done to the Advance, but she stood the strain. It's quite a wreck. Oh yeah, wreck. 3 drinks for wreck, well done. 1, 2, 3. It's quite funny because sometimes they'll go to so much effort to avoid a particular word being repeated, and then others they'll just chuck them all in. Oh dear. The shock was terrific, and at first it was feared some damage had been done to the Advance, but she stood the strain. It's such a risk. The damage, because how would you get out? If anything happens to the submarine and you're using it effectively as a club, as a blunt instrument against something, even though they've got a sharp stick on the front, the risk of something happening and you being stuck down there and trapped in it. "Did we open up much of a hole?" anxiously asked Mr. Swift. "Pretty good," replied Tom, observing it through the conning tower bull's eyes when the submarine had backed off again. "Let's give her another." Usually when you run into something and you stab it, the hole you make is only a little bit bigger than what you're stabbing it with. So are they actually stabbing it with this sharp thing on the front, or is the sharp thing opening it up and then the nose of the actual submarine is also tearing it further? I don't think they have the capacity to be able to build something that strong. It's not a bulldozer. "Let's give her another." Once more the great steel ram hit into the side of the Boldero, and again the submarine shivered from the shock, but there was a bigger hole in the wreck now. Wreck? Better use the right one, eh? And after Captain Weston had viewed it, he decided it was large enough to allow a person to enter and place a charge of dynamite so that the treasure ship would be broken up. If you've got pallets of gold bars in the hold and you blow the ship up, they're just going to get scattered everywhere. And then you have to wander around the floor of the ocean trying to find them. And some of them will be stuck in little crevices in the rocks, and some of them would have gone over the edge to where it gets deeper because it said that that's where the current was coming. Okay, we'll just read on. Tom and the captain placed the explosive. Then the Advance was withdrawn to a safe distance. There was a dull rumble, a great swirling of the water which was made murky, but when it cleared the submarine went back. It was seen that the wreck was effectively broken up. It was in 2 parts, each one easy to access. "Okay, that's the stuff," cried Tom, except we also have wreck. "Now to get at the gold." "Yes, get out the diving suits," added Mr. Damon. "Bless my watch charm, I think I'll chance it in one myself. Do you think the sharks are all gone, Captain Weston?" In a short time, Tom, the captain, Mr. Sharp, and Mr. Damon Attired in diving suits, Mr. Swift, not caring to venture into such a great depth of water, were attired in. Besides, it was necessary for at least one person to remain in the submarine to operate the diving chamber. It's not just operating the diving chamber, it's operating anything in case they need help. Oh, that's why I was pulling faces at you. I was thinking they were all going out. Oh! Sorry. Walking slowly along the bottom of the sea, the four gold seekers approached the wreck. The captain, Mr. Sharp and Mr. Damon, right. They looked on all sides for a sight of the sharks, but the monster fish seemed to have deserted that part of the ocean. The sound of the explosion would have also put them off. Tom was the first to reach the now disrupted steamer. He found he could easily climb up, for boxes and barrels from the cargo holds were scattered all about by the explosion. Not shattered, just scattered. Captain Weston soon joined the lad. The sailor motioned Tom to follow him, and being more familiar with ocean craft, the captain was permitted to take the lead. He headed aft, seeking to locate the captain's cabin, nor was he long in finding it. He motioned for the others to enter, that the combined illumination of the lamps in their helmets could make the place bright enough so a search could be made for the gold. Tom suddenly seized the arm of the captain and pointed to one corner of the cabin. There stood a small safe, and at the sight of it, Captain Weston moved toward it. The door was not locked, probably having been left open when the ship was deserted. Swinging it back, the interior was revealed. It was empty. There was no gold bullion in it. There was no mistaking the dejected air of Captain Weston. The others shared his feelings, but though they all felt like voicing their disappointment, not a word could be spoken. Mr. Sharp, by vigorous motions, indicated to his companions to seek further. They did so, spending all the rest of the day in the wreck, save for a short interval for dinner, but no gold rewarded their search. Wreck. Tom, late that afternoon, wandered away from the others and found himself in the captain's cabin again, with the empty safe showing dimly in the water that was all about. Hang it all, thought the lad. We've had all our trouble for nothing. They must have taken the gold with them. Idly he raised his steel bar and struck it against the partition behind the safe. To his astonishment, the partition seemed to fall inward, revealing a secret compartment. The lad leaned forward to bring the light of his helmet to play on the recess. He saw a number of boxes piled one upon the other. He had accidentally touched a hidden spring and opened a secret receptacle. But what did it contain? That's because we can't use the word compartment, because we already have. Tom reached in and tried to lift one of the boxes. He found it beyond his strength. Trembling from excitement, he went in search of the others. He found them delving in the after part of the wreck, but by motions our hero caused them to follow him. Captain Weston showed the excitement he felt as soon as he caught sight of the boxes. He and Mr. Sharp lifted one out and placed it on the cabin floor. They pried off the top with their bars. There, packed in layers, were small yellow bars, dull and gleaming yellow bars. It needed but a glance to show that they were gold bullion. Tom had found the treasure. The lad tried to dance around there in the cabin of the wreck, nearly 3 miles below the surface of the ocean, but the pressure of water was too much for him. Their trip had been successful. No, it's only successful if you can get back. It's like ascending Mount Everest. It's only successful if you also descend. There's no point in getting to the top and then dying on the way down, which many have done. Chapter 25, Home with the Gold. Now let's just have a quick look and see how many more chapters we have to go. This is the last one. Cool. I shall continue. Home with the Gold. Just because it's not really obvious, the progress bar along the bottom also includes the length for the extra bit with the Project Gutenberg guff in it, which is usually quite long. Chapter 25, Home with the Gold. There was no time to be lost. They were in a treacherous part of the ocean, and strong currents might at any time further break up the wreck. Not that it's been causing problems up till now. So that they could not come at the gold. It was decided, especially because these days the wreck is in parts now. It's more fragile than it was. It was decided by means of motions to at once transfer the treasure to the submarine, as the boxes were too heavy to carry easily, especially as two men who were required to lift one could not walk together in the uncertain footing afforded by the wreck. Another plan was adopted. The boxes were opened and the bars, a few at a time, were dropped on a firm sandy place at the side of the wreck. Tom and Captain Weston did this work, while Mr. Sharp and Mr. Damon carried the bullion to the diving chamber of the Advance. They put the yellow bars inside, and when quite a number had been thus shifted, Mr. Swift, closing the chamber, pumped the water out and removed the gold. Then he opened the chamber to the divers again, and the process was repeated until all the bullion had been secured. I do hope that they allowed for the weight of this in their calculations of the submarine. Tom would have been glad to make a further examination of the wreck, for he thought he could get some of the rifles the ship carried, but Captain Weston signed to him not to attempt this. The lad went to the pilot house while his father and Mr. Sharp took their places in the engine room. Oh, we're now in the submarine. Okay, thank you very much. And we also have a wreck. The gold had been safely stowed in Mr. Swift's cabin. Tom took a last look at the wreck before he gave the starting signal. As he gazed at the bent and twisted mass of steel that had once been a great ship, he saw something long, black, and shadowy moving around from the other side, coming across the bows. "There's another big shark," he observed to Captain Weston. "They're coming back after us. I hope it's not the other submarine." The captain did not speak. He was staring at the dark form. Suddenly, from what seemed the pointed nose of it, there gleamed a light as from some great eye. "Look at that," cried Tom. "That's no shark." "If you want my opinion," remarked the sailor, "I should say it was the other submarine, that of Berg and his friends, the Wonder. They've managed to fix up their craft and they're after the gold." "But they're too late," cried Tom excitedly. "Let's tell them so." "No," advised the captain. "We don't want any trouble with them." "You should have been getting out of here quick before they saw you." Mr. Swift came forward to see why his son had not given the signal to start. He was shown the other submarine, for now that the Wonder had turned on several searchlights, there was no doubt as to the identity of the craft. "Let's get away unobserved if we can," he suggested. "We have had enough trouble." It was easy to do this, as the Advance was hidden behind the wreck and her lights were glowing but dimly. Then, too, those in the other submarine were so excited over the finding of what they supposed was the wreck containing the treasure that they paid little attention to anything else. "I wonder how they'll feel when they find the gold gone," asked Tom as he pulled the lever starting the pumps. And we have another one of a wreck, by the way. 2. I wonder how long it'll take them before they actually decide to give up, because the others, they can tell that the others have been there. "I wonder how they'll feel when they find the gold gone," asked Tom as he pulled the lever starting the pumps. "Well, we may have a chance to learn when we get back to civilization," remarked the captain. The surface was soon reached, and then under fair skies and on a calm sea, the voyage home was begun. Part of the time the Advance sailed on the top, and part of the time submerged. They met with but a single accident, and that was when the forward electrical plate broke. But with the aft one still in commission and the auxiliary screws, they had made good time. Just before reaching home, they settled down to the bottom and donned the diving suits again, even Mr. Swift taking his turn. Mr. Damon caught some rather large lobsters, of which he was very fond, or rather, to be more correct, the lobsters caught him. When he entered the diving chamber, there were 4 fine ones clinging to different parts of his diving suit. Some of them were served for dinner. The adventurers safely reached the New Jersey coast and the submarine was docked. Mr. Swift at once communicated with the proper authorities concerning the recovery of the gold. American authorities, I guess they mean, even though they were doing it down off Uruguay, which should have meant Uruguayan authorities. After he and his friends had been paid for their... The adventurers safely reached the New Jersey coast and the submarine was docked. Mr. Swift at once communicated with the proper authorities concerning the recovery of the gold. He offered to divide with the actual owners, the ship owners, yes, because it actually belongs to them, after he and his friends had been paid for their services. But as the Revolutionary Party to whom the bullion was intended had gone out of existence, there was no one to officially claim the treasure. So all went to Tom and his friends, who made an equitable distribution of it. The young inventor did not forget to buy Mrs. Baggert a fine diamond ring, as he promised. As for Berg and his employers, they were, it was learned later, greatly chagrined at finding the wreck valueless. They tried to make trouble for Tom and his father, but were not successful. Does this mean we're going to meet them in another story? A few days after arriving at the seacoast cottage, Tom and his father and Mr. Damon went to Shopton in the airship. Captain Weston, Garrett Jackson and Mr. Sharp remained behind in charge of the submarine. It was decided that the Swifts would keep the craft and not sell it to the government, as Tom said they might want to go after more treasure someday. They're going to have so many different things that they keep because it might be useful. They're not going to have enough time to use any of them. I must first deposit this gold, said Mr. Swift as the airship landed in front of the shed at his home. It won't do to keep it in the house overnight, even if Happy Harry Gang is in jail. Tom helped him take it to the bank, as they were making perhaps the largest single deposit ever put in the institution. Ned Newton came out. "Well, Tom," he cried to his chum, "it seems you're never going to stop doing things. You've conquered the air, the earth, and the water." "What have you been doing while I was gone underwater, Ned?" asked the young inventor. "Oh, the same thing, running errands and doing all sorts of work in the bank." Tom had a sudden idea. He whispered to his father, and Mr. Swift nodded. A little later he was closeted with Mr. Prendergast, not Pendergrast, which is the one I know. Same thing, the R is in a different place. The bank president. It was not long before Ned and Tom were called in. "I have some good news for you, Ned," said Mr. Prendergast, while Tom smiled. "Mr. Swift, one of our largest depositors, has spoken to me about you, Ned. I find that you have been very faithful. You are hereby appointed assistant cashier, and of course you will get a much larger salary." Ned could hardly believe it, but he knew then what Tom had whispered to Mr. Swift. The wishes of a depositor who brings much gold bullion to a bank can hardly be ignored. "Come on out and have some soda," invited Tom, and when Ned looked inquiringly at the president, the latter nodded an assent. As the two lads were crossing the street to a drugstore, something whizzed past them, nearly running them down. "What sort of an auto was that?" cried Tom. "That? Oh, that was Andy Foger's new car," answered Ned. "He's been breaking the speed laws every day lately, but no one seems to bother him. It's because his father's rich, I suppose. Andy says he has the fastest car ever built." "That's a challenge for Tom, isn't it?" "He has, eh?" remarked Tom, while a curious look came into his eyes. "Well, maybe I can build one that will beat his." And whether the young inventor did or not, you can learn by reading the 5th volume of his series, to be called Tom Swift and His Electric Runabout, or The Speediest Car on the Road. "Well, Tom, I certainly appreciate what you did for me in getting me a better position," remarked Ned as they left the drugstore. "I was beginning to think I'd never get promoted. Say, have you anything to do this evening? If you haven't, I wish you'd come over to my house. I've got a lot of pictures I took while you were away." "Sorry, but I can't," said Tom. "Why, are you going to build another airship or a submarine?" "No, but I'm going to see—" "Oh, what do you want to know for anyhow?" demanded the young inventor with a blush. Can't a fellow go see a girl without being cross-questioned? Oh, of course, replied Ned with a laugh. Give Miss Nestor my regards. And at this Tom blushed still more. But as he said, that was his own affair. And that's the end of the story. There you go. Oh, and it's ended right in the middle of an ad break. That's such a shame. Right, well, end of the story, end of today's reading. It's 10 to. I am not going to be starting a new one, just because we've still got 10 minutes to go. So Tom's going to go off and see his potential girlfriend. Yes, we did it. We got there in today's read. I didn't know if we were going to or not. And I was expecting Berg and his henchmen to actually be more of an issue for more of the story. Thankfully, they weren't. Speaking of things like octopus and squid and other creatures of the sea, they used to believe that giant squid that sailors would talk about were mythological, not real. And then some fishermen actually caught a dead one. Some deep sea fishermen caught a dead one. It was already dead. And it was quite big. And they're not just a normal squid that's kept growing. They're actually a variety, and they are called giant squid. So the stuff that you hear of in stories where they talk about an octopus putting its arms around a ship and wrestling with it and stuff like that are actually much more likely to be squid, giant squid. And the likelihood is much higher than what you'd expect. They're a deep sea creature, by the way. And they tend to like to live in undisturbed places, like in the Southern Ocean. That's the water that runs around Antarctica. And one of the things that did confirm it for the sailors before they were actually finding the bodies of them from deep sea dives and stuff was the fact that whales, some of the whales that actually do populate the deep south of the oceans, would actually have sucker marks along their sides like you get from octopus, but they were a lot bigger than normal, and they reached a lot further around the whales than you would expect from a normal thing like that. And apparently they are from giant squid. They've been caught off the coasts of New Zealand, off the southern coasts of New Zealand, all sorts of things like that. They've been if you look them up online, you'll actually see they are pretty humongous. And it's quite funny because for years and years and years, everyone's been saying, oh, that's just sailors. They get scared by things so easily. They're just making it up. I don't think that's true, because if you can cope with what sailors cope with in the Southern Ocean on a sailing ship, and keep going back to do the job over and over again, I don't think you get scared that easily. So when you see something, you're much more likely to have been seeing something related to what you thought you saw. It may not be the actual thing that you thought you saw, but it would be something like that. Like the fact that in stories we hear of these giant octopus, and they're mythological, and in actual fact, in real life, they are known now that we have giant squid, and they're enormous. Go and look them up. They actually do have the remains of some in various museums. It's unbelievably big. Yep, I'm going to refrain from Googling that. I want to sleep tonight, says Joltek. Yeah, save it for another day. But they are just mind-blowingly massive. The stuff that exists in parts of the ocean that people don't normally get to is incredible, but also weird. Some of the really deep sea fish are strange, like the anglerfish, the one that have in Finding Nemo, the one with the little light that hangs in front of it, and it's got the really ugly teeth and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, they're real. And they attract their prey, but they're not as big. They attract their prey because they've got this light, and the little fish come towards the light, and so they actually then swim forward, and the movement of the water as they're going forward with their mouth open actually means that these little fish get swept into their mouths. Makes sense, but it's also really odd if you've never seen something like that before. So when they first started going deep underwater in submarines, various submersible vessels, and before that, even just diving, but diving deeper than people had normally dived, or diving in one of those big heavy dive suits where you are lowered from a ship and you're walking across the bottom rather than swimming, which is what snorkeling, which is what scuba diving is. Yeah, they were seeing stuff that nobody had seen before, and it was really strange. It is a whole completely other world down there. Not somewhere I'd like to live. But yeah, it used to be that you would, in some scientific magazines and encyclopedia type books, they would talk about colonizing the deep seas as well as colonizing the moon. And they would put in their ideas of how it could be done with interconnected, like bubble houses type thing, and people working underwater to do things like the cable repairs that they actually do, and welding and all sorts of stuff like that. Maybe not quite as deeply as they were projecting, but some of it kind of works, does actually happen, but just not quite the way that they expected it to. So we live in a sci-fi world. If you think about it, the Jetsons. Okay, we don't have flying cars, but we have video phone calls. I mean, I can talk to somebody on my phone and I can see them at the same time. It's not just a voice. That's real. Robot vacuum cleaners. You know, the little round things, really expensive, don't work very well. Yeah, they're real. We've got them now. Electric cars, we've got them now. We don't have flying cars, but maglev trains. Trains that are driven in part with levitated so that they can be driven without the friction. Those are real. That sort of thing. There's so many things that once were science fiction that actually exist now, just not quite the way that we thought they were going to, because that's how science develops. Anyway, have lots of fun thinking about fun sciencey things. See if you can come up with some ideas of stuff that haven't either a new angle on something that others have already come up with, or something completely new. Write it down. Start thinking it through how it could actually exist. Because a lot of stuff that was science fiction in the early days was written by scientists. True story. And what they were doing was taking stuff that they knew of and saying, let's project that to what might be. And they were actually basing it on stuff that they knew was real and then projecting from there forwards. Look at what we got. Anyway, there you go. There's a little bit of a thought for you to take with you. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for completing this story. I said to you that next time when we finish the story, we'll be doing a Bobbsey Twins story, the first of the Bobbsey Twins books. The first few books are not mild detective stories. They're, who did what sort of stories. They're just little kids' adventure stories. But that's what we will be doing next if my craft project doesn't arrive, and I don't think it has. I don't think it will be in time. Just because delivery over here is not very good around weekends. It usually takes another half a week. Anyway, so we'll see you all next time. Sleep well, look after yourself, stay hydrated, and last of all, and always important, happy reading. Bye.